So he was a wonderful young girl, born with a completely normal heart, who died of an entirely preventable disease.
Everywhere I go, she's everywhere with me. She was looking forward to going back to school, but didn't make it. I don't want to see other kids get rheumatic heart disease and they'll end up like me. I was with him the whole time, my son. Me and him, we had a lot of fun. Mother and son. Yeah.
Calling their mums and dads and letting them know that there's a possibility that their kids could have rheumatic heart disease, you know. It's heartbreaking when you have to make them calls.
Rona always got sick and she'd always get better. They thought that that's what was going to happen, but it didn't.
I have seen dozens of children die from rheumatic heart disease, and I've seen literally hundreds needing open heart surgery.
We have the highest rates of rheumatic heart disease in the world, and we don't have a coordinated effort in place yet to address that need.
We've got a generation of young people who are dying. Knowing that it is preventable, we all should be ashamed of that.
You have a problem of education, you have a problem of access, you have a problem of not enough money spent, not enough people who are taking the medical practices to the communities themselves. So this is an enormous challenge.
It's a disease of disadvantage, of overcrowded housing, of poor access to medical care, of racism. And it's a disease that we have solutions for.
All of these things need to be addressed in order to eliminate rheumatic heart disease. That has happened in many populations. It has not happened in the First Nations population in this country. This disease has not gone away.
RHD comprises such a significant part of the health gap that exists in Indigenous Australia at the moment. We've got to go to the core of that problem, and if we're able to knock that over, then the gap closes considerably.
of October 2023, Australia voted no to have Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people in the Constitution. I instantly felt numb. I just felt Australia doesn't value us. There's still a lot of people who don't understand what happened to Aboriginal people. The living conditions that we see now is a direct result of colonisation. So the effects of past policies, discrimination, it's affecting people living today. And if health professionals don't recognise this and don't include it in their wider policies and their treatment, we won't close the gap.
Nakamnali. My name's Dion DeVow and I'm a proud Mambara and Darnley Islander man. I'm here in the land of the Wurundjeri people, but I grew up in Larrakia country in Darwin. And for a time, I was a health worker, so I know what rheumatic heart disease is. But do you? Rheumatic heart disease, known as RHD, starts in childhood. And it was once widespread amongst all Australian kids. But today, it's almost exclusively found amongst young First Nations people. No child is born with this disease.
So rheumatic heart disease starts from the strep germ. This germ lives in our throat and on our skin. When children are exposed to these germs repeatedly, then it creates an autoimmune reaction.
And basically it starts attacking its own tissue in the body.
The longer the strep A bug is in your body, after your valves get damaged,
that's when it becomes rheumatic heart disease.
some of the symptoms sore joints, sore throat, fidgety, like jerky movements, sweating, fever.
These symptoms can be subtle and easily missed by families and even health workers.
This disease usually has its onset in school-aged children. The consequences of damage to heart valves during that period of time can be absolutely dire. Heart failure, stroke, atrial fibrillation and death.
I have a grandson and I took him out hunting one day. Jeremy was sweating and he just didn't look well. The doctors in Wadea did an x-ray and few blood tests, and then the result came back. He has a rheumatic heart disease, and we were so worried from there. The doctor spoke to us in Wadea Clinic saying, Jeremy needs to fly into Darwin. We stayed 6 weeks in Darwin, did a lot of tests.
Jeremy's a special kid who has been through a lot, and it's hard to imagine for such a young boy the things that he's been through because of rheumatic heart disease. And I met him for the first time while he was in hospital with really critical aortic valve disease. It's where your heart's pumping your blood out of the heart, goes to the rest of the body. And his was leaking terribly, and so it had all this blood coming back the wrong way, and his heart was sick because of it, he was sick because of it, breathless and struggling actually, and desperately needed cardiac surgery.
The doctors in Darwin said to us, look, we need to send Jeremy straight away to Melbourne. It was scary and sad. We don't know what we were expecting down there. Michelle and I, as grandparents, we were so worried about Jeremy's little heart.
He had a very successful cardiac surgery on his aortic valve. He returned to Darwin and then back to community to Wadea.
But you know, when a child gets rheumatic heart disease surgery, it fixes that problem with the valve, but it doesn't make the risk of rheumatic fever go away. And so it's still possible for them, if they get further infections with the strep germ, it can come back essentially.
He developed severe chest pain and shortness of breath. With that, he presented to the local clinic, but it happened to be right in the middle of the cyclone that came through. And he was asked to return to the health clinic a few days later. When he did, he was in very poor shape. He was very short of breath, had a very low blood pressure, and his heart was just pumping out of his chest.
So he was stabilised in hospital in Darwin, travelled back to Melbourne, had further cardiac surgery, and now is back in Wadea, which is terrific, great for him to be back with the family and healthy again. But it emphasises what a dreadful disease this is and how vigilant we have to be in the kids who've been diagnosed as well.
He's got 4 valves in his heart, 3 are not working.
So that really means getting his monthly injections, getting his warfarin every single day. In addition to that, getting a blood test every fortnight to make sure the blood is not too thin or not too thick. So he had his first surgery at 8. A year and a half later, at 9.5, he had his second surgery. Now he's 10, he's almost guaranteed to need a third surgery between 13 and 15 years of age. This is a 10-year-old boy who was born completely healthy. So the journey ahead of him is a really tough one.
In this part of Australia, almost 400 children are living with rheumatic heart disease. The North Queensland RHD clinical team are based here in Cairns, where they look after patients all the way up to the Torres Strait Islands. Until recently, the whole region was serviced by a team of just 2 health professionals,
paediatric cardiologist Dr. Ben Reeves and clinical nurse consultant Erin Ferguson.
Good boy. Keep breathing, honey. Oh my goodness, you're so brave, darling. We've got a huge problem up here. Our paediatric population has a higher rate of acute rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease than the rest of Queensland combined.
To put that into perspective, these are amongst the highest rates in the world, including in Africa and India.
Cairns Hospital is the catchment for a massive geographical area. We service communities across the Cape and the Torres Strait. We know that there are barriers with transport, with people having many children that they need to bring into clinics, with people having family commitments that they can't necessarily get to their appointment on the scheduled time. So we try to be as flexible as we can and fit the appointments around when suits them. The other thing that we've worked really hard at is having everything available for them at one time when they do come to see Ben in clinics.
So we're sitting in Thursday Island Hospital. Thursday Island is at the very tip of the Australian mainland, and we come here 4 times a year for a 4-day trip. And getting all the needles on time? Good. We service a number of the outlying islands as well, all the way up to the New Guinea border. So yeah, it's a huge area. So we've had several families from outer islands today that have visited.
When the specialist teams are here, it's essential that everyone who needs to be seen stays for their appointment, as the next opportunity won't come around for another 3 months.
Most frequently when the children have been to a clinic before something not very nice has happened to them, they're either getting an injection or coming to see a doctor, so that they often associate fear with coming into clinic. When they come to our clinic and see that we've got the Starlight Captains here, it makes it an enjoyable experience for them.
Chicken.
Yeah. So it breaks down that fear, and by the time they get in to see us, they're happy, they're excited to be at clinic.
When Apollo was 3 years old, he was diagnosed with RHD. Jacana's determination to find out what was wrong with her son was critically important.
He stood up and then he just couldn't walk. He's just started to get hot. So we came into TI, we spent the night here, and that's when we got to see Dr. Ben, and he was confident that he had the rheumatic heart fever.
Yeah, it was just so scary not knowing what was happening with him and to see how sick he was, and I just wanted him to get better.
Apelu is really the youngest child I've ever seen with rheumatic heart disease. It's much more common in people over 5. We spoke to his mother who was with him. We let her know about what the disease was, and more importantly, we let her know what the treatment for this condition was, which is a painful intramuscular injection. And for a 3-year-old who really it was difficult even having him sit still on the bed for an examination. The thought of those injections stretching forward for the next 18 years, which is really what his treatment course involves, was very daunting. For me, it was really uncertain what that outcome was going to be.
Jacana and Apollo have travelled 160 kilometres across the Torres Strait to Thursday Island in order to see Dr. Ben.
Oh my goodness, this is much better. Incredibly, that moderate mitral regurgitation has resolved almost completely. I can't believe the change.
Thanks to his mum's support and Apollo's courage staying on track with his monthly needles, the news is good.
Your heart looks so good. To hear that news today, that his little heart is actually repairing itself, it was really emotional.
Just the most fantastic outcome, much more than I would have expected. And so, yeah, it was emotional seeing him, and now I can see a real bright future for him if he stays on treatment. There's a long way to go, obviously, but there's, you know, significantly more hope than 6 months ago when we first met.
If we can make sure that he keeps going the way that he is, so staying on treatment with his injections on time, then he should grow up to be a perfectly normal, healthy, happy little boy with a strong heart.
I'm Cecilia Johns. I'm born and bred Katherine girl. This year I got selected to be a part of the 2021 Indigenous Marathon Program squad, and that involves training throughout the year, camps to hopefully be able to run the 42-kilometre in Alice Springs. As a part of being the health promotion team leader, we're funded in our program to do rheumatic heart education and help with the scanning at Barunga.
How are you feeling? You feeling strong? We had the opportunity to check up on every child's skin, throat and heart and deliver education to the entire community in Barunga. That was very successful, but we finished early. We finished all the children, so every single child had a heart check today. So we have got some spare time. If any of the adults or teachers would like a heart check, please let us know.
Bo pops her head around and goes, "Anyone want a heart scan?" And I was like, "Yep, do me. I love this sort of stuff. I want to look at my heart." She puts the wand across my chest and she's scanning. I'm telling Bo all about the health checks that I've had. And then I just see her stop, slow down, her face drop.
What we found is that Sissy had rheumatic heart disease. And I just didn't know how to put it to her. You know, how am I going to say this?
Bo looks at me and she's just like, "I can see here that you have mild rheumatic heart disease." I was like, "Huh?" I was shocked and then I went to frustrated and I was just like...
She told me that she's not from an impoverished family. She had been living in reasonable housing, she had good education, and yet here she is as an Indigenous woman who's in a peak of her life, just about to run a marathon. And now she's got this thing to worry about, this thing called rheumatic heart disease.
Why don't we have this stuff in Katherine? I'd never seen this machine before until this week, so, you know, why not? Yeah.
Sissy was diagnosed with mild rheumatic heart disease, and on treatment it means she never needs to have surgery. After extensive consultation, we reassured her if she stays on track with her monthly injection, she'll be okay to train for a marathon and continue with that.
Having these machines just located in Darwin and not anywhere else, it's just ridiculous. Some of our communities are 1,100 people plus. We can't get them all up to Darwin to get heart scans. Not having access to these sort of resources and people trained up in heart scans, you know, they're missing out. So I think by having the tools and the resources out there and the education and the people to deliver it, we could knock some numbers on the head.
It's quite an unusual land, the Pilbara. When I look through the beautiful country, and it's lovely country up here, but it's very sad too because I don't think government are doing the right thing by the Aboriginal people here, the traditional owners being forced off where they feel comfortable.
How many people live here?
My 2 brothers, my other 4 sisters. We got all the nephews and our own kids. Right now they're using my bed, I'm sleeping on the floor. It's very hard. We've been like this for a long time. We're still hoping for new houses. It's getting winter time, the cold go right through. Yeah, they get sores. Too much walking around barefoot. Don't want to have a shower because it's too cold. I got no hot water. Sometimes we have to go town and to somebody's house and have a shower.
That community really pulled at my heartstrings. I just couldn't see a way out that this community within this next generation could thrive. It's just a great big boiling pot for strep A. The majority of white Australia do not even know our mob are living in these conditions. If you took a non-Aboriginal person up to there, they would not believe it. We know that there was a couple of cases diagnosed in this community who have not had bicillin. A few years down the track, they'll be going off for open heart surgery. It's devastating. No one's going out there to give them the bicillin. They'll be lost to follow up. You can see the trajectory and it is heartbreaking. It's a person's choice where they live, and often they will live where they feel safe and where they are connected to country. So these things have to be considered in healthcare policy. What they do need in the Pilbara is a rheumatic heart disease program.
We don't necessarily know exactly what the rates are of rheumatic heart disease. So we're here in Karratha working with various different healthcare professionals here as part of our NeuroScan project. Echo, so heart ultrasound, is very sensitive for picking up rheumatic heart disease. So the NeuroScan project is an implementation research project looking at how we can integrate echo screening for rheumatic heart disease into routine care. And that's obviously important for the individuals, but it's also important from a health service perspective, because if we know actually the rates are twice as high as what we understand they are now, then we can actually build services around that. So one of the questions we're going to try and answer with the NeuroScan is to give some prevalence data for the Pilbara specifically. They are an awesome team. They're made up of clinical nurse, Aboriginal health practitioners, Aboriginal midwives who work across different departments within the WA Health here.
My name is Emma Corpus. I grew up in the Kimberley, inside you. I got asked if I wanted to be a part of the NeuroScan project. The NeuroScan is basically just a probe that we plug into a tablet. And on the tablet, it'll show the main valves that we're looking for to check if there's any damage or leakages, and we could carry that anywhere. So yeah, it's very portable. So we get out in the community and get invited into locals' homes. Once they see us knocking at their door, you just tell that they feel comfortable. They got a big smile on their face. So yeah, I think that does make a big difference, being Aboriginal and a familiar face. For us to be able to get out there and meet them at home or wherever they feel comfortable, yeah, that's the best part. I feel very proud to be part of this project. To me, I feel like I'm making a difference. Open heart surgery, we don't want that on any kid. So yeah, I feel like it's our responsibility to look after our next generation.
Local professional development of Aboriginal health practitioners and workers is vital. It's important then that people understand what's happening to them. So at the time of doing a scan, you can do a little bit of health education, health promotion. And when they do it in language and the community that come for the scan know them, it makes a big difference.
There's a lot of really good ideas in rheumatic heart disease and how we can address it, and echo screening is one of those. But what we really need to understand is how we can implement that type of program that's sustainable. And it looks different in each different health service. You know, how it looks in the Pilbara is different how it looks in Maningrida, for example.
So if you sweep too far, it's not this one anymore, it's tricuspid.
Recently, my youngest daughter, who was 7, got diagnosed with rheumatic heart disease, and this was done through the NeuroScan. Can you tell us about what you have with your heart?
Rheumatic heart disease.
And how long have you had that for?
I think a couple of years.
The first time she had her injection, she was really nervous and didn't know what to expect. And I really didn't know what to expect as well. And I really felt for her. She didn't realise how much pain that she would be in after the injection. The site is quite sore, so she limps, and it takes her just about all we can to recover. Yeah, I'm just so glad that she got picked up earlier. It just can happen to anyone.
At least 100 young Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders are lost to rheumatic heart disease every year. And that number is very likely to be an underestimate.
When health authorities don't listen to us, they ignore us, this is what happens, man.
Indigenous children are dying from diseases and poverty of Australia that does not make the news. Completely preventable conditions at a number of different stages: housing, treating skin and throat infection, delivering secondary prophylaxis, delivering surgery. You have all this opportunity to stop death. But these kids fall through all those gaps, and it just appears to be normal.
Or I just wanted to know the truth and what happened to my baby in the hospital.
She asked us to take her to the hospital. She said, yes, this time, right? They're just going to check my heart. But she didn't come back out.
So much sorrow, so much sadness. Yvette Booth died from a preventable disease in a rich country like Australia.
I'm sorry, my baby's just not coming out through anymore.
This same story is happening as frequently as twice a week in Australia. Rona was best friend and cousin to Lorraine.
Yeah, her death has traumatised the entire family.
Little was my second brother, my everything. Loved being on camera. Maybe, I don't know, one day he might be famous like that, thinking.
I always miss him. Yeah, my son, he passed away young.
Don't cry.
We are sick of this disease. Communities, parents, kids are sick of this disease. We want to be rid of it. But we need some help. And we do need help from government.
2018, at the World Health Assembly, Australia signed up to eliminate rheumatic heart disease by 2031. We are not on that trajectory. Signing a piece of paper, that's not enough. I'm over rhetoric. I want action.
Looked at 862 children.
We need our leaders to take this seriously. And the three people who can change the course of rheumatic heart disease in Australia is our Prime Minister, our Health Minister, and our Treasurer.
And while we wait for the government to fully commit to the RHD Endgame strategy, the work continues on the ground. Bo is leading a mission across Australia in order to prove how Australia can put RHD in the history books once and for all. It's called the Deadly Heart Trek.
The Deadly Heart Trek is a bunch of committed individuals jumping in the back of a four-wheel drive, visiting remote communities, working together with them to provide skin checks, heart checks and education to empower them to address rheumatic heart disease and skin health in their community.
We work with the local health team, and wherever possible we initiate treatment. Many of these remote communities have never seen a paediatric cardiologist.
The Trek will visit remote communities throughout Queensland, the Northern Territory, South Australia and Western Australia.
While the root cause of rheumatic heart disease is the same, The solutions have to be truly community-based. The amount of energy and enthusiasm that communities have to solve this problem is enormous.
And with so much community buy-in, the true scope of the problem is revealed.
So over the last couple of days, we have scanned around 200 children, and we have found 10 children, 5%, with previously undetected rheumatic heart disease. And that is just frightening. And that would be completely unacceptable in most communities in Australia. It would be an absolute outrage. It would be page one news. No one would accept it. And yet, we seem to accept that this continues to happen in Aboriginal people. A lot of the care that's been provided, the rheumatic programs, the knowledge and the research into rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease have got better. But unfortunately, for all of that, this problem has not gone away, and in some ways it's worse than it was when I first saw this disease in the 1980s.
The problem with these kind of programs at the moment, it comes at the goodwill of people. So there's a group of paediatric cardiologists who are fed up looking after children who need open heart surgery or die, and we have gone in our own time during our annual leave to check up on children. But unfortunately, no one is funding a project like this. Our feeling is that this is now going to be a continuous track that's going to go on until we solve rheumatic heart disease.
It's about looking after our kids from, day one. When you look after your heart, you can look forward to a better life, a better future.
Saying no to the voice doesn't mean that we have to say no to eliminating rheumatic heart disease. This happened, and how do we move now forward?
The fact that our child has sustained heart damage, nothing about that is okay.
To lose kids and young people to this preventable disease is absolutely unacceptable. We should not accept it.
Here you have a rich, equal society, the envy of all societies in the world. And here you have people living in frankly third world conditions. At the heart of it still are questions of justice and equity and just caring, just opening your eyes and having a look around and realising that Indigenous people aren't something you forget about, don't just live on the fringes, but are at the very centre of the spirituality and the being of this country.
Who's got the burning intent to change this? I can understand why there's defeat and apathy. We can't let apathy take over. It can be done. We can close the gap. Yes, we need the experts and system to get behind us, but first and foremost, we've got to lead it.
We can actually influence government, we can influence our communities. Whether you're Indigenous or not, whether you live in remote countries or not, there is something that we can all do.
No child in Australia should die from rheumatic heart disease. We can do better than this, and we need to do better than this. It is possible to solve rheumatic heart disease in Indigenous communities. And what we need to have is a systematic approach of community leadership, community design programs. They have to be sustainable, but most importantly, government funded.
The only gap now is putting the dollars on the table and making a financial commitment to getting rid of this thing.
We need our leaders to take this seriously, and together, let's get rid of rheumatic heart disease once and for all.
The only way we can get rid of it is to have everyone be aware of it and want to make a change. It's time.